Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we're going to be talking about the state of healing because this is honestly a important topic. It is a discussion video. I really want to know your opinions about this because Blizzard has been trying to get healing right for a really long time, specifically in Mythic Plus content. And in this video we'll talk about the state of healing in Season 4. We'll talk about what's happening in the War Within. We'll talk about how Blizzard is acknowledging or almost pushing towards a certain gameplay when it comes to healing, and that is going to be evident in the next expansion. Let's go and get started. So first of all, you probably have seen a lot of these Reddit.io really high Mythic Plus dungeons being done with 4 DPS. Now, I think a lot of people are confused about exactly what's happening here because it's not necessarily true that the whole dungeon was completed with 4 DPS and there was no healer needed. I had to do this in Season 3 when I was pushing for Mythic Plus score as Resto Druid. You can look at a certain dungeon on certain affixes and be like, hey, I'm gonna swap to Balance Druid. I'm going to do a portion of this dungeon until we meet a hard healing check. Then I'll run out of the dungeon, I'll swap to Restoration Druid, and I'll heal the rest of the dungeon as a healer. Now, because of how data is represented here, you will be shown as a 4 DPS group. And some people are misunderstanding the fact that you're probably doing a portion of the dungeon as a healer and the other portion as a DPS, which is also, you could argue, a problem at the heart of the state of healing. And this is so rampant in high key Mythic Plus pushing that the recent buffs to Balance Druid tier set, people are memeing that this is going to be more impactful to Resto Druid because of this switching gameplay. But you might ask yourself, hey MadSkillz, why the hell do I care what the top 1% are doing? You're not going to be doing these tactics or these strats and pokies. You're not going to be risking, again, in order to do a dungeon or a portion of a dungeon as 4 DPS, you need to really play well in terms of using defensives, in terms of using interrupts, in terms of using utility. You're not going to be doing that in pugs. Why do I care what the top 1% are doing? And that is because it all comes down to how Blizzard is approaching healer balance and healer design. So specifically in the War Within, if you're playing Resto Druid, if you watch some of my videos, Restoration Druid has certain talents. For example, a talent that gives you Hard the Wild for 10 seconds every 1 minute. And then if you pick another new talent, you're able to heal true damage with certain abilities while Hard the Wild is active. So depending on your talent choice for a portion of a dungeon or something along those lines, you might be feeling like a discipline priest because your damage is going to be converted to healing. I made multiple videos about this, and honestly I got very mixed response in terms of this design choice for Blizzard. A lot of people were saying, hey, I don't want to play a discipline priest, or I don't want to DPS. A lot of people, and this is something that stuck in my head, I play a healer to just heal. Now, I thought about this sentence, I thought about what it actually entails, because let's say, for example, if you did have some sort of affix in Mythic Plus dungeons where you basically only had to heal because you had no time to DPS, what would that look like? Maybe something like a constant Grievous ticking down where you legitimately cannot DPS because you have to heal 100% of the time. I'm fully confident this kind of affix would actually drive a majority of healers away because it would just be too annoying to play. Because guess what? Think about this from Blizzard's perspective, and this is why this is a discussion video. I really want to know your opinions about this. Blizzard is kind of stuck in these... It's stuck in this position where, hey, if we make healing really hard, like in Dragonflight in Season 2, healers will complain. If we make healing easier, again, healers will complain because healers will be forced to DPS more, and the best healer in Mythic Plus might be a healer that provides the most damage, which we've seen happen in previous expansions. Again, I'm oversimplifying this because in Season 2, it wasn't only the issue of healing, it was also the issue that Holy Paladin had monopoly on spot healing, and all the other healers' spot healing was really weak, and therefore Holy Paladin was really overpowered. He could meet all the spot healing needs. And then Blizzard in Season 3 and Season 4 kind of gave spot healing for majority of healers, or buffed it. And this comes down to the fact, what is the right approach? What is the design approach for healing in this expansion and in the next expansion in terms of the War Within? Blizzard has, in my opinion, acknowledged the fact that healers have to DPS. Now, as a Resto Druid, in my opinion, they implemented a pretty decent way of encouraging that because it is an optional talent. If you're someone who plays Resto Druid, who likes to kitty weave, who likes to heal, or who likes to DPS, especially in Mythic Plus content, you might, again, log into the War Within and you'll be able to talent into certain choices that will heal true damage And if you're someone who doesn't like that, you might not talent into it and just play how you like to play, which honestly feels like it's trying to cater for both worlds. But it's important to highlight the fact that Blizzard is acknowledging that healer DPS is a thing. And again, let me know how you feel about healer DPS, because for example, Holy Priest for me has been a type of healer that was the last bastion of defense. Now, I'm saying it in such a way that it's almost negative, but it is or has been a classic type of healer where a lot of new players could come in and join Holy Priest. Again, Holy Priest damage for a long time wasn't really all that great. You weren't really all that much encouraged to deal damage as a Holy Priest. You were kind of almost like a support healer in Shadowlands with Night Fae and things like that. And for the longest time, Holy Priest was there to introduce, in my opinion, almost to introduce new players to healing and how to heal. And in the last, again, we've seen this in Season 3, Blizzard has reworked Holy Priest in such a way that, again, you can sacrifice your healing in order to provide more damage by using, for example, Divine Word with Chastise. You have this gameplay loop between Chastise and Holy Fire. And this kind of gameplay is absolutely insane in terms of the amount of DPS you can do if you're allowed to DPS. In terms of looking at some of the DPS chart, Holy Priests are absolutely insane. And now Blizzard, in my opinion, has acknowledged the fact that, hey, if you're playing a Holy Priest, one of the big advantages of playing Holy Priest in something like Mythic Plus content, you're able to pump some meaningful damage if you're allowed or choose to do so. So now you have some meaningful reworks happening or happen to Holy Priest in terms of giving you more incentive to deal damage, Resto Druid in the War Within in terms of healing through damage. And that kind of spurred this whole video in terms of the discussion video. What is the right way to do? There's no way Blizzard is going to please everyone here, because let's be honest, there's a lot of players out there who just don't want to DPS. I think it's very important to acknowledge the fact that the classic style of healing, especially in Mythic Plus, is kind of dead unless you're not doing kind of content where it really matters. If you're a type of healer who just heals and just sits there and waits for the party to need healing, and you're just sitting there and doing nothing, that type of gameplay is steadily dying out, at least when it comes to min-maxing your healer in hierarchies. And Blizzard has definitely acknowledged the fact that healers do damage in these Mythical keys, especially if there's nothing going on. Healer will, for example, let's say the whole party is full HP and you have nothing to do, there's mobs out there, you will press Moonfire, Sunfire's Resto Druid. You will do some damage, and if you're someone who really likes to optimize DPS, you might do some kitty weaving, which requires a lot more skill and effort in order to optimize. And I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to be unhappy about this because they didn't roll a healer in order to DPS. But I also think, how do you solve this issue? Is this a problem to be solved? Because let's be honest, there's always going to be times where there's nothing to do as a healer and you kind of want to provide or kind of need to provide that extra damage because there's nothing else going on. I have to also really highlight the fact that healer damage is not as impactful as people make it out to be. And a prime example of this, in really high Mythic Plus pushing groups, depending on the dungeon you're doing or affixes, your group might ask your healer to swap to a DPS for a portion of a dungeon, and they rather risk running a dungeon without the healer because the damage that a DPS can do is significantly higher than what a healer can do, even if the healer is focusing on DPS for majority of the time. And this begs the question, should healer DPS be increased to play a larger part in the group's success in order to reduce this type of mentality that is happening in hierarchies? Again, let me know how you feel about this. And this is why I'm making this video, because Blizzard is not going to please everyone here. I want to know your opinions. If Blizzard makes healing too hard, a lot of healers are going to complain, because I understand the sentiment. Healers have to meet healing checks, they have to DPS, they have to provide utility, they have to deal with affixes a lot of the times, and they're at the mercy of their DPS players using defensive cooldowns. It can sometimes feel all too much, especially if the healing checks are really, really high. And on the other hand, if healing is made too easy, a lot of focus is going to be placed on healer DPS, and we've seen this in the past where the best healers are the healers that provide the most damage. And who knows, maybe if this is going to be the route that Blizzard focuses on later on down the line, the best healers are going to be the healers that have the best DPS off spec. For example, maybe Resto Druid is going to be the best healer because he can swap for a portion of the dungeon to Balanced Druid, and Balanced Druid is doing really well. Again, this is an over exaggeration, but something to really think about. I'm going to finish up the video with my personal opinions. I've been healing for a really, really long time in World of Warcraft, and I started off healing as a healer who just presses heal buttons. DPS was not even It didn't even come into my mind as an option as a healer when, again, this is years and years ago when I was playing. But over the time, I slowly realized that, hey, you have a lot of time as a healer. You don't have to keep everyone topped up at 100% of the time, because if you know the damage patterns, you can optimize your DPS. Now, healer DPS has fluctuated from being very good to being very poor to almost not even required. To an extent, in certain expansions, healer DPS was the main point of making a healer meta. So I've seen fluctuations in healer damage for a really long time. I think healer DPS in Dragonflight is a little bit overrated in terms of timing and key. I think it's more about survivability rather than the DPS. And I have embraced fully healer DPS concept because I play this game a lot and I play every single healer. And a lot of these dungeons that I do, whether it's going to be pugs or whether it's going to be organized content, I will try to do as much damage as possible to see if I can beat my record in order to keep it interesting or entertaining. Here's the problem. This is coming from someone who plays this game full time. I spend an ungodly amount of hours playing healers in World of Warcraft, and maybe I have lost touch or perspective in terms of what it feels like to play this game in a more casual capacity. Someone who does pug content and does organized content, there is a huge difference between healing a pug versus healing an organized group. And this is why I think Blizzard is stuck in this really hard place. Do we balance healing for pug groups? Do we balance healing for the top 1% pushing the highest keys in the world? Do we encourage healers to do damage? Do we allow healers to do healing through damage? Do we push towards this? Do we try to eliminate the fact that certain high mythic plus pushers are bringing 4 DPS for a portion of a dungeon? Do we try to eliminate that and give healers more DPS so you don't do that? All I can say is that I do not envy Blizzard's position here in terms of trying to fix or balance healing, but I think it's very clear that Blizzard is taking certain sides or accepting certain truths about healing, especially when it comes to Mythic Plus content. So guys, let me know how I feel about healing, and I do want to mention Final Fantasy because it is another very popular MMO. I don't really play Final Fantasy, so I don't know exactly what it entails, but a lot of people tell me that healing in Final Fantasy, you're almost like a hybrid DPS kind of spec, and I almost feel that there is a possibility that Blizzard might decide to go that direction in the future. Maybe modern WoW healing needs to be completely reworked. Maybe it's fine. Maybe, again, there's just so many different things that could change with healing, or maybe not change. Maybe Blizzard should stick with what they have, or maybe Blizzard should modernize the whole genre of a healer in World of Warcraft. Let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if you like this video. You can, again, feel free to agree and disagree with the things I'm saying here. It is a complete discussion video, and because it is a discussion video, I'm going to read every comment out there and I'm going to see how people are feeling about healing in World of Warcraft, specifically in Dragonflight and the war with it. Let me know, and I'll see you in my next video.